Just a couple things, I'll ask the council members if they have any questions. I probably should have kept talking on the last time we talked about the getting the word out, getting the news out. Just a show of hands, has anybody received the Bellevue annual report? I mean, the city spends money to get that out to people. It goes out to every household. And the parks plan was in there. Granted, it didn't say that there was gonna be decommissioned parks. But if you see something, that there's a parks plan, you got a park in your backyard, please reach out to your council members and just ask them about it. Just make a statement. So, that's one of the things we did to make sure people get the information that's going on in Bellevue, is send out that annual report. It costs taxpayer money to do that, so I wanna make sure people are utilizing that. The other thing is Bellevue. The administration's got a job of trying to keep your taxes low and giving you the best service possible. Your council sits between us to let us know what you want. It works if you just engage. Bellevue operates, I throw this out all the time, Bellevue operates on $1,640 per person a year. Omaha's like $2,340 per person. Everybody else is higher than that. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. We are the highest mill levy, at one of them anyway. I'm not sure what the highest, but the mill levy is high. But that's because we don't have the sales tax dollars like some of the people have. We don't have the industry. We are working on projects to do that, hopefully to increase those budgets. So we do work with a tight budget. We're not trying to tax you out of the home. So when you say maybe add more maintenance, maybe add more employees, I mean, we're looking at that, and your representatives are telling us what you want. So just engage us. The system does work. There's checks and balances. I appreciate you all coming out tonight. It was great input, and I think we got a lot of information from it. Are there any other questions from the council? And I destroyed my notes. So we had closed public hearing, so do I have a motion? Councilman Burns?
Before I make a motion, I just wanna make sure that I do this in the correct order, so this question will be for city attorney Patty, but, if I wanna make an amendment to the plan, would I have to move to approve it and then move for an amendment to the plan? Can I just make the amendment? Can I just propose that?
You can, well, we need to make a motion, sorry.
To approve first?
We need to make a motion to approve, and then a second, and then, if there is an amendment, there would need to be a motion for the amendment.
Okay, I'll move to approve the plan. Actually, I'll move to approve resolution number 2023-16.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Motion by Burns, second by Cook. And now, any comments or questions?
Yeah, so,
Councilman Burns?
well, and I'll make some comments too. I do wanna tell everybody, and I know some people left and it's getting late, but I do appreciate, and I know this whole council does, I know the mayor does, really appreciate everybody coming out, and I just wanna say that everybody was heard, and particularly, I know there were a lot of concerns, but what really dominated was the decommissioning of some of the parks, 8 of them. So, really, I mean, I just looking at this, my amendment, I suppose I would move that, I understand that this is just a plan and these are recommendations, but I think it would alleviate a lot of concerns. If we actually just remove page 71, and then any wording that recommends the decommissioning of those specific parks. That would be my proposal, so I guess I would move that we just eliminate any wording that specifies decommissioning. I believe page 71 of the plan outlines it, it's one page, and then if you go to those specific parks, there's a sentence that basically says it's recommended that this park be decommissioned, and then maybe we just remove the wording.
In our packet, that's page 73, it's online.
Yeah, I know, I don't know why, I think on mine it's 71 for whatever reason, but it is one specific page. And I think my justification is if the city wants to look for an alternative use down the road, you know, there's still probably an opportunity to do that, you know, with working with neighbors, you know, the city can bring it forth. There's a number of things. But I think this alleviates a lot of concerns. I think this is a really good plan. But I think this is particularly what people have concern over. And I don't know what the harm is in just removing it.
I second the motion. After you announce it, I'll comment.
So I got a motion by Burns, second by Preister to amend the approval of resolution 2023-16, removing all wording regarding,
Decommission.
that's the word I'm looking for, decommissioning the parks. Councilman Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. I first want to say, this has been very instructive, good civics lesson tonight, and you had an influence, but you touched my heart, because it's been a long time since I've ever seen so many people so compassionate and passionate about parks and the city parks. So kudos to all of you. It's wonderful that you care about it. I heard mostly concern about taking away parks. The plan itself, I heard almost nothing other than caution and explanation and information. So rather than upset such a segment of caring people for one aspect of an otherwise very good plan, and if we take it out, it changes absolutely nothing except the confidence of the public in what we do. It can still be done, I warn you, and it could still be done individually, so we're not taking that authority away by any stretch of the imagination. As the mayor mentioned, it's only 17 acres, and of all of the acreage, that's a very small amount that's not gonna change significantly the mowing schedule. 17 minutes in one location and at the others. I think there are options and other suggestions, and I have confidence in the public that you can come up with some additional ways that we can minimize some of that mowing, and that the very good intentions of the administration and the council to streamline, to use taxpayer dollars more wisely, more efficiently, can still be done, and maybe some changes can be done, and there could still be parts or something with some of these parks that could still be done. But whether this part of it in decommissioning is in or out, we can take it out, and it hurts absolutely nothing. Anything could still be done individually with the parks, but what it does is lets the public know that we are listening in a very tangible way, that we do care about children, that we do care about parks, that we do see schools and parks are the heart of our community, and that those two things, probably more than anything, are where the passion resides in our citizens. So why would we alienate so many people over one small aspect of an otherwise exemplary plan? And yet, we could still do the things in the plan for it, and could still do any individual response with citizen input in the future. So I think Councilman Burns' proposed amendment to take out the decommissioning fits perfectly with not just what we heard, but a response, a proactive response to the plan. So with that, I thank you for listening. I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for being here, being engaged, and caring about parks.
Councilman Cook.
My only look at usage and what's happening with different parks. Voting this tonight is saying this is a guide. We had already talked about, in this here says put together a committee and bring the public involved in it and look at these parks. So, I don't know why you don't want that to play out. I don't know why, we asked these three, well, Jeff, I don't know, to look at this, and they came back with a recommendation. We're not saying we're gonna decommission any park, and to say, it doesn't matter if it's in or it's out, we can still do what we wanna do. Why doesn't the city council want to take a harder look at these 8 parks? We may not decommission any of them, but why are we just tonight giving up on what we asked these guys to do for us?
They didn't do it.
Because we asked you.
Quiet from public speaking, sorry.
I don't know, I mean, I don't think, putting this book together and just taking what listen, I've heard some things tonight that there's probably some parts that I would not support to decommission. But we're not even giving this process a chance to play out.
If
I
you
mean-
don't know, you can't have a process.
No process.
I need you to be, I need you to be quiet, audience, please.
I mean, it's a tough decision, but by voting, I don't know,
Council
maybe I
President.
need to be swayed differently.
Well, let's go, Councilwoman Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm agreeing with Councilman Cook. I think this wording needs to be in here because it gives us an opportunity to meet with the residents of these areas specifically and say, I mean, I heard some things tonight that I'm just like, wow, they're really making some sense here and we need to investigate this further. Again, Jeff and his group is just recommending. We don't have to take the recommendation. We don't have to say he's right. We can go to the residents, but it gives us an idea of where the concerns are and then go to those citizens and say, help us understand what we, do we keep this as a park? Do we turn it over to the neighbors? Do we do a memorandum of understanding? Do we do something with it by getting their input on this? And by leaving this in here, it gives us a target of parks that we need to get more information on so that we can make good decisions. By taking this out, it doesn't give us the target or the ideas of what we need to do, and it doesn't, we paid them to give us this information, and now we're saying, now we don't want your information. No, this is good information from them, but it's also better information from you, and I feel like there's an opportunity to do a win-win by leaving this information in here so that we can develop a plan that works for all of us.
Any other questions? Councilman President.
To Councilman Cook, I would respond from another perspective that we're not gonna do everything in this plan. So to say we're throwing it out isn't really the way I see it. It's still on the table, it can still be done, and we're not accepting everything in this plan. I mean, if you look at taking care of the grass, it calls for us to have 90% or more of the grass in turf grass, so we've eliminated every weed. That's not realistic. Parks are so heavily used, there's no way we can get to 90% turf grass almost anywhere. So we're not throwing all of it out, but we're gonna be selective in what we do put in and what we can realistically do and what we can fund. So to say to take one aspect out, that we're not going along with the plan, I don't see it that way. And to Councilwoman Well, if we indeed are listening to the public, we can still do all that, we can still have the public hearings, we can still do everything. But we haven't really taken them into account by just doing nothing and approving it completely. I think this sends a better message to the public and still gives us the flexibility, still gives us the options, and we can look at individual parks. if we're all in agreement that maybe one or two of these parks definitely shouldn't be closed as a result of the citizens, then we don't look at that one. We can still look at whether it's Mason Park or any other that may seem obvious. We're not taking that off the table. We're not taking that option away. It's only 17 acres. It's not that big, but it sure sounded important to a whole lot of the folks living around those places. And I think, at least from my perspective, I want to be sensitive to that. This amendment gives us that option.
Councilman Casey?
Just a comment, I think we're actually saying the same thing. We're saying we can leave it in there and we can not do anything, not decommission anything, or we can take it out and we can still decommission it. So I guess I'm torn because I really do believe we're kind of saying the same thing. We're just saying it in a different way. And it goes back to, I think, what was said earlier is that this is just a plan. This is a guideline for us to decide what we're gonna do in the future, and it gives us some ideas of what professionals have spent a lot of time, and city officials have spent a lot of time looking at this and trying to give us some intelligent input to maybe what we need to look at down the road, so. In way of levity, I hope there's no home invasion folks in Goldenrod neighborhood, because you all are here tonight, so. Thank you.
I appreciate the levity, and I agree. We're both saying the same thing. The difference, the distinction for me is that we're respecting a lot of people who aren't here tonight. I've gotten more phone calls, texts, and emails on this, and I apologize to those I haven't gotten back to yet, but it's been a full 2 days, the last 2 days. There are still people that don't know about it. I had considered trying to lay this over for 2 weeks, but I like this approach better, just so we can educate and help people. A lot of people out there are thinking this vote tonight means that we're eliminating the parks. It's absolutely not true. All this is a proposal, suggestions, but people don't know that. And I've tried to inform them on social media, and I know others have, but the public hasn't gotten that word. Some time for them to understand, and if this is not in the plan, believe me, that word will get out quickly, and even though we're saying the same thing, the public will get a whole different message. And that's my point, that the public sees and understands. Clearly, we're not closing any parks, and that we listen.
Councilman McCaw?
Okay. I actually, thank you very much for showing up. I think it's an awesome plan, Jeff. I think what you guys put together is amazing. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not in favor of removing anything from the plan at this point. Because I think we have a plan and we need to try and play that through and see what it looks like at the end of the day. But I'm also fear that if we remove that, park decommissioning from the plan, as everybody will feel good tonight, 2 years from now, if we show up on the doorstep and say, hey, we're thinking about closing this park, somebody's gonna pick up this book and say, it doesn't say anything in there about decommissioning that. And I'm afraid that we may forget, others will forget, that down the road, there's still that possibility that we're gonna look at every park or we're gonna make adjustments. It is a living document, it's gonna change over time. And I'm very fearful that 2 years from now, people will show up and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Remember, we were at the meeting and you all said no. So I think we need to leave it in, and I think we need to play with it for a little bit. And then whether we do or we don't, we'll see what happens next. But right now, I think we need to at least give the plan a shot, give it a chance.
Councilman Burns?
Just because of I'll respond to Councilman McCaw first real quick, which is it is a living document, which means that, we can't choose to follow recommendations, not follow recommendations, just let things be a standstill. you know, I think this is a document, you know, so when things are recommended, you know, the city uses it as, you know, hey, this is what's recommended. I don't know. I don't know if that really matters, and I also don't think, and I mean no disrespect, in the way I said that, but, and I also don't think that by throwing this out, that we're just saying, hey, you know, here's, you know, we don't really care what the professionals are saying, or we're throwing the plan out. I mean, it's our plan, you know what I mean? When we say we paid for it, you know, the taxpayers paid for it, it's the city's plan, you know, and they showed up tonight and expressed concerns, particularly over this. I just don't really see the concern in removing it, you know, and I don't think it's that much of the plan. I also think it really does set us on a course to say we are decommissioning, you know, or, you know, is this the plan? You were really speaking in the affirmative, Mr. McCall, when you said, Councilman McCall, when you said, you know, this is the plan, let's let this play out, you know. I just don't like the predetermination that we are gonna decommission parks. You know, if we really do see the need, the city can come back and look at those 8 specific parks and make those determinations. You know, we can have citizen input, we can work with the neighbors, on a later date if there's really a need for that. You know, and then the opposite could be said, which is if we don't decommission, you know, somebody who wants a decommission can come back and say, well, it's in the plan, how come you didn't do this? I don't know. I think that's kind of a moot argument for a living document.
Any other comments, questions? All right, well, I make no qualms about letting people know where I stand, so, the only time I ever get a vote is when there's a tie. It's not fair. Administrative side of it, we've spent 18 months working on this. We've got a lot of time, energy in it, it's a great plan. Again, we're not decommissioning any parks tonight, it's a target. If the city runs into problems 5 years down the road and they need another 100,000 in the budget, you know, maybe they use it then. We've got some identifiable, properties that we've actually done a study on, and we're not picking, you know, uneducated about it, so we're basing it on a plan that somebody else has done, so. I think administratively, it's a lot easier to leave them in there, and, that way you've got a target if you need it, or if you think it's the best for the city. We're representing the entire city, we've got 65,000 people in the city. So that's what this plan, I think, does. Again, we're not decommissioning any properties tonight. Any other questions? Councilwoman Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one last thing. I think by having this decommission in the plan, it's what caused you guys to come out. If this was not there, we would have not even been transparent to let you know this is recommended. It's not what we're doing, and we're not decommissioning anything. But we wouldn't have heard from you if we didn't have park decommissions in the plan. I think it needs to stay in the plan so we can continue to get your input to help make the proper decisions for the neighborhoods.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Find my notes and my agenda, my notes. Motion by Burns, second by Chrysler, to amend, removing all the wording regarding decommissioning parks. Please vote.
We have 2 yes votes, 4 no votes, with Councilman Casey, Councilman Cook, Councilman McCaw, and Councilwoman Welch voting no. Motion fails.
Okay, so we have a motion by Burns, second by Cook, to approve resolution 2023-16, adoption of the master parks plan. Any comments or questions? Please vote.
I have 5 yes votes. All voting yes, motion carries.
What was that? What was the vote?
Oh, sorry. I said 5, didn't I? Gotta go back to my screen. I had 6 yes votes,
Okay.
all
Thank you.
voting yes, motion carries.